I'm honestly surprised you don't have like an intro that you like write out and have ChatGPT write you an intro or anything like that.
No, I like to keep the podcast as authentic as possible. Like sometimes I'll write something down to say, but I'll never actually like write a whole script for the podcast. That's what some early podcasters do.
Right.
But yeah, no, I never write down exactly what I'm gonna say. So that's what makes it so good, guys. But here today I have Jordan Lendt, one of the biggest sports buffs I know, I think. But how you doing today, Jordan?
I'm fantastic. I'm very honored to be on here. Listen to, I won't say every episode so far, but most of the episodes, and have been very impressed so far. And happy to provide a little bit of a sports perspective versus the tech and the weather and all of the other topics that you've had on.
Well, today we're discussing. We had to choose from like the four biggest sports, so I chose football as the best because I'm more into that than more into other sports. But the first thing I want to discuss is, what is your favorite football team?
Oh boy, there's a loaded question. I grew up in the lovely state of Minnesota, and growing up as a Vikings fan, my dad actually has an old car, a 70s, 80s Impala. I say old. To me, it's old. To him, it was just a car. But he's got it decked out as a Viking mobile, customized paint job and decor and Viking horns on the front of it. So we took that to Vikings games and lived and died with them. And purple's my favorite color. So yes, I am a die-hard, dyed-in-the-wool Minnesota Vikings fan. For better, for worse, and mostly for worse.
So is the only reason you stay with them just because of your heritage, or do you actually like the team and everything about it?
I mean, at this point, I'm invested, man. I can't dip out and go watch another team, and I got too much time and too much heartbreak invested in this team that it is what it is. And I watch a lot of college football. I'll watch NFL games all the time. I play a lot of like fantasy football and things like that. But it's hard to root for another team.
It's just the Vikings have been around for so long, and the only thing they've mastered is getting people's hopes up and then crushing them.
You are absolutely correct.
They're like a bad Wi-Fi signal. Strong start, weak finish.
That's very true.
And Kirk Cousins has a lot of potential compared to other quarterbacks.
But he's not even there anymore. Yeah, we paid him hundreds of millions of dollars, and then he left and went to Atlanta, and now we don't even have a quarterback right now, because the quarterback we had last year is a free agent and our rookie's hurt. So next year's going to be interesting. That's for sure.
Well, when they made it to the playoffs, I was like, oh man, it's the end of the world. And then they lost in like week 1, right?
Yep. Got our doors blown off by the Rams. And I totally called it, because we lost to the Lions and the Rams in the regular season. And then we played the Lions in the last week and lost again. And I told all my friends, I was like, we're going to go to the Rams and we're going to lose again. And we did. I didn't quite get the score right, but I knew it was going to happen.
What would you say was the Vikings' best year? Like, have they ever had what's the best chance they've ever had?
Well, before either of us were around, back in the day, the 70s, they had what they call the Purple People Eaters, and they went to 4 Super Bowls and lost them all. Not quite as bad as the Buffalo Bills, who went to 4 consecutive Super Bowls and lost them all. They were spread out. So the 70s and 80s Vikings were really good. Tailed off for a while. 98, I was just a little kid, and was our best season ever. Went 15-1, had the best record in the league, best offense in the league, best defense in the league, and get to the NFC Championship game. Our kicker that didn't miss a kick the entire season pulled it, kick that would have, I think it was a 43-yard field goal that would have won the game, and pulled it, and we lost in overtime and didn't go to the Super Bowl. 2009, we had the 2nd seed, had a really good year. If you've ever heard of Bounty Gate, if there's any NFL fans listening to this podcast, big scandal where the Saints, New Orleans Saints, paid their players to injure our players.
Yeah, there was a movie about that with Kevin James.
Yep, there sure was. And we were a much better team, but we were at their place. And because of that whole scandal, we lost and didn't make the Super Bowl. And then 2017, same thing happened, 13-3. The Minneapolis Miracle, once again, most NFL fans are familiar with that walk-off bomb touchdown against the Saints. And then we were hosting the Super Bowl in Minnesota that year. So the only thing standing between us and playing a Super Bowl in our home stadium was a road game at the Philadelphia Eagles. We drove down the field the first possession and scored a touchdown and then lost 38-7. So we've had a lot of good years. The Vikings are actually the fourth most winning team of all time in NFL history, the fourth best winning percentage. Wow. And no Super Bowls to show for it. Haven't even been to one in my lifetime.
It's the Vikings are not a bad team in general at all. And there are a whole lot of teams that are worse than them. It's just they're unlikable too.
Yes, we're always like middle of the ground to good, but never quite the best.
Have you ever had any other team that you ever liked, or were you born with the Vikings?
I was born and bred with the Vikings. My wife grew up in North Idaho, Washington, and so she's a Seahawks fan. So I'll get on board with the Seahawks a little bit, as long as they're not obviously playing the Vikings. Other than that, no, not really. Long-standing rivalries with the Packers, with the Bears, with the Lions. Because of playoff history, we hate the Saints. We hate the Eagles. And it is what it is at this point. I'm locked in for the duration.
What do you think is the biggest contrast between college and NFL, and which one do you like better?
That's a really good question, and I've thought a lot about that because I absolutely love both of them. But I think, at least in my opinion, the biggest difference between college and football and the NFL football is the fan bases in college. Like if you go to a college football game, it is an absolute madhouse. Living here in Salt Lake, I've been to a ton of University of Utah football games, and it is loud. It is crazy. The fans live and die on every play and every word and every snap. NFL, you go to a game and it gets crazy, and obviously there's diehard fans, but the crazies are crazier. But the average fan is a lot less invested. The NFL is a lot more corporate. And like the Super Bowl, for example, is not a lot of fans there. It's just something to go do. It's an event versus college football. It's you live and die with everything because you went to the college, or your mom and your dad and your cousins and your uncles and your grandmas and your grandpas all went to that college. And so that's even more family than the NFL. So I think they're very similar in some ways, especially now with the money and the NIL and how players are getting paid in the college. But I just think the rabid fan that is a lot more rabid for college than NFL. And then you get your small colleges, right? Like who wants to watch Tulsa play East Carolina? Me, I'll watch that because it's a college football game in there every day of the week during the season, Tuesday to Saturday. So there's a lot more opportunity because there's a lot more teams, and so a little bit more widespread, at least in my opinion.
So in your opinion, do you think college players should get paid?
I do. I don't think they're necessarily doing it the right way right now with the NIL. They definitely need a lot more rules and a lot more safeguards for the players and their families. But with how many billions of dollars are spent on college football, and I mean, even recent news, the ACC bringing in, it's the Atlantic Coast Conference, and now they're bringing in last year Stanford and Cal from the state of California to play all the way across country just because millions of dollars in TV revenue and ads and all that. So yeah, I think it's a good thing for the players to get paid. Now, I think they still need to work on how they do it, but it's definitely going the right way for sure.
So who would you say is the best coach in NFL history? Because there are a lot and they're all very different, especially the winning ones.
Right. I mean, you think of the great ones like the Lombardi Trophy, who the winning team in the Super Bowl, that's what they get at the end of the year. It's named after a great coach from the Green Bay Packers, Vince Lombardi. You could think of a coach like Tom Landry or Jimmy Johnson or Bill Belichick. Right now, one of the best coaches is Andy Reid. And I think when it's all said and done, he will probably go down as right there with Belichick and the greats of bygone years. Just how many championships they won. And that's kind of the be-all, end-all, right? Did you win the Super Bowl? Did you win your league? Did you have the record? Did you all the different things? And so I think Bill Belichick would be the current GOAT coach for modern times. Andy Reid's very close to catching him. But if you go back through history, there's a lot of good coaches. The Vikings have a good coach right now, Kevin O'Connell. We've had good coaches in the past. But, yeah, I think right now it would be between Andy Reid and Bill Belichick for modern best coach.
Who do you think is the most overrated player in the NFL?
That's such a tough question, right? Like, you get so many big names and they come out of college and they're hyped up and they go in the draft and, man, they're going to be the next coming of Tom Brady or the next coming of Adrian Peterson or the next coming of whatever defensive end or tackle or wide receiver, the next coming of Randy Moss. And then they get there and they're good. They're good. They're good and they have a good year and they catch some touchdowns. They have flashy plays. They're consistent, but maybe they're not the best, or you have one that has a really good year. Think of somebody like Odell Beckham Jr., OBJ, that has probably the single best catch in NFL history. If you're an NFL fan, you've seen that catch getting interfered with, one hand on the sidelines, crazy good catch, was far and away the best receiver in the league for a couple of years, and then just nosedived right off the table. And he's still in the league, but he's pretty much nothing right now. Fringe receiver, hops around different teams. So overrated is tough to quantify, just because teams and players fluctuate so much, and you can have a great year one year and have a terrible year the next year, or vice versa. I think, biased Vikings fan opinion, I think Jordan Love is a very overrated quarterback. He's a solid quarterback. Watched him play when he was out here at Utah State University a couple times in college, and never thought he'd be a good NFL quarterback. He's improved. But do I think last year he was worthy of being the highest paid player in NFL history at that point? No. And he's a good quarterback. But I would say if you're going to be the best at anything or the most at anything, you better be the best and the most. And to me, that would be one person right now that I could put up there as a very overrated player would be Jordan Love from the Packers. Maybe a little bit of biased Vikings fan speaking there because I don't like the Packers, but also some actual sports knowledge there too. So
in the NFL, especially lately, because Tom Brady is more recent and he just retired, right. They're calling him the GOAT, and he's been called that for a long time. But it's almost like people bypass all of the other players in the NFL who've had a really great legacy, and they just think Tom Brady because he had a really, really long career. But do you think he deserves that title of the greatest of all time?
I do, for a couple reasons. If you think of GOAT discussions, and if you're listening to the podcast and you're like, why do they keep talking about GOATs? It's an acronym that we use in sports to stand for greatest of all time. But if you think of that discussion, like specifically in basketball, right? The NBA, you've got LeBron James versus Michael Jordan. And even just last week, or this week it might have been, LeBron passed 50,000 career points. And so a lot of people are saying, man, that just solidifies him as the GOAT. He's the best because he has the most points and he's been around the longest. Well, if you think about somebody like Michael Jordan, who won 6 championships, never lost a championship game around, whether it was Olympics or college or NBA or whatever, if that makes him the GOAT and the winning, and you think maybe somebody else thinks LeBron's longevity and consistency makes him the GOAT and numbers, well, if you put that into the NFL, Tom Brady has both. He's got the championships, he's got the numbers, he's got the longevity, he's got the money as far as what he made during his career, he's got the wins. So, I mean, he wins every discussion you could think of as far as the GOAT. I don't know who would pass him. Maybe Mahomes at some point if he keeps winning, but there's a long way to go to catch Brady at this point. So, yeah, I would say Tom Brady for sure would be the GOAT. If you think of quarterbacks as the best players, which typically they win MVP, typically they're going to be the quote, best player, then if you think of the quarterback as the best player, well, who's the best quarterback? There's been a lot of good ones, but I would say Brady would probably be up there as number one.
Were you expecting his comeback like at all? I know he discussed it, but when he first came back, was that like a shock to you?
Very much so. I thought, he was the Patriots. The Patriots were not Julian Edelman or Wes Welker. Randy Moss played for the Patriots for a few years, and the Patriots were Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. And to see him in another uniform for the Buccaneers for a few years, that was really weird. Definitely never thought it would get there. And obviously, I never expected to see Belichick coaching in college like he's starting to do this year for North Carolina too, but we're there now too. But yeah, it was very much a shock to the system. I think people hate on him a little too much for broadcasting. He's all right. It was his first year. He did fine. He'll get better. But I think he's good at whatever he does. That's just who he is as a person.
So I know he's pretty much gone. Everybody's like not giving him any attention. But like when he said this year that he might come back if there was a contender, did you think that he would come back then?
No, I was pretty sure he was just trying to get people going. And, there's no such thing as bad publicity. And so I think it was more that, trying to get people talking about him and talking about his broadcasting career. Is he going to keep doing that, or is he going to move back into the playing field or whatever, and keep that publicity up and hype it up? But no, I didn't. He was very much done. And now he's in part owner of the Raiders. And yeah, there's no way he's coming back. He's done.
Out of all the games that you've seen live, like actually in the stadium, which one was like the best or craziest, college or NFL?
I got two. Bet I'll go one of each. So the best NFL game I've ever been to was I believe still to this day, it's the highest rated Monday night game in ESPN history, when Brett Favre went from the Packers to the Jets and then the Jets to the Vikings. About, I want to say like 6 weeks into that Vikings year, the Vikings and Packers played on Monday night, and my dad and I drove his Vikings car down to the stadium, got tickets, went in. We were sitting in literally the last row of the stadium. And if I remember right, tickets were like $250 or something for the worst seat in the house. But the stadium was loud. We booed the Packers to death. The Vikings defense played really well. Adrian Peterson had a bunch of good plays. I think Favre threw 3 or 4 touchdowns that night. Super close game, really good game. Vikings won it late. And so I'd say that's the best NFL game I've ever been to. I went to another one in California when I was in college at Golden State with my buddy, whose name is also Jordan. And we went to a game there, and we were the only people in our section of the stands with Vikings gear on. So that was a little crazy for the other reason, because we thought we were going to die that night. Best college game I've ever been to, I actually took your dad to, was the University of Utah versus USC Trojans a few years ago. Both teams in the top 25. Utes won 43-42 on a touchdown and 2-point conversion with like 8 seconds left. Fans rushed the field. It was an upset, night game, blackout. I've never heard a noise in my life as loud as when Cam Rising went into the end zone just for that 2-point conversion to win the game. It was insane in there. And if we didn't have church the next morning and weren't sitting 2/3 of the way up in the stadium, I would have been on the field too, but I didn't feel like that was a good idea at the time. But yeah, those would be the 2 best games I've ever been to.
I can totally see you rushing the field, trying to hug all the players and stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Phone out, recording. Look at this. Look at this. Yeah, absolutely. I would have been. But if we were any closer, I might have, or if it wasn't 11:30 at night on a Saturday. But it was a good game. It was a lot of fun. I told your dad after the game, I said, I'm sorry, because he'd never been to a college football game. And I told him, it's only downhill from here. You're never going to go to a better football game than you just were at.
Which NFL team do you think has the biggest fan base?
The biggest fan base? The Chiefs are all bandwagon fans. Nobody's an actual Chiefs fan. I joke. They do have real fans. I know some of them.
I'm not one of them, frankly.
Yeah, well, You have to say the Cowboys, right? I know your family's trends more towards the Cowboys, being from Texas,
right?
But they've had the moniker America's team for decades, and love them or hate them, they're always on TV. People see them, they know them. Everybody, you don't have to be an NFL fan. You know the Cowboys logo, you know the colors, you know the jersey. They're on Thanksgiving. It's tradition. Even if you're not a football fan, you watch the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. And so, yeah, I'd say the Cowboys are probably the biggest fan base. Whoever's the best team right now, the Patriots back in the day, the Chiefs now, they tend to get fans, and those bandwagon fans, the fringe ones. But as far as consistent fan base, I'd say definitely it would have to be the Cowboys.
So, speaking of the Chiefs, who did you think was actually going to win this Super Bowl? Because I was positive from the very beginning of the playoffs. I mean, I think most people were and we had the same Super Bowl 2 years ago with the Chiefs and the Vikings, and I was so confident that they were going to have a three-peat. I
wish it was going to be the Chiefs and the Vikings. I think you meant the Eagles, but
the Eagles. Yes, yeah.
I wish it was the Vikings. That would have been awesome.
Never happened, though.
I'll be honest, as much of an NFL fan as I am, I did not watch 1 second of the Super Bowl this year because I hate both teams that are in it. And Sunday night, I was in church. I didn't care. I didn't want to watch. I didn't like the teams. I didn't care who won. I really wanted the Bills to win because the Bills are basically the AFC version of the Vikings. Super heartbreaky losses, really good a lot of times, just can't get over the hump. And so I wanted the Bills to win it. And when they were out and the Vikings were out, I was like, whatever. So I was glad the Chiefs didn't win just for the non-dynasty, and nobody's ever done a three-peat. Yeah, I always root for the underdog because I'm a Vikings fan and we're always the underdog. But yeah, I didn't think the Chiefs were going to win. They had the record during the regular season, but their metrics and all the things that actually got them there weren't as good as it looked. So I wasn't that surprised when the Eagles blew them out.
Well, looking at the highlights from the game afterwards, I think a lot of the problems were mental. I just don't think the Chiefs were at their best. I think there was a lot of pressure, and especially with Kelsey. He's gone way down.
It's hard to win. I mean, there's a reason nobody's ever done a three-peat in the NFL. It's hard to be at the top for that long, and when you're at the top, you get everybody's best shot. You get everybody's absolute best every time they play you. And maybe the Chiefs had a B game in the Super Bowl, but the Eagles had an A++++ game, and that's what happened and made them look even worse than they actually were. If they played an A game and the Eagles played a B game, maybe the Chiefs would have won, but the Eagles definitely put it to them and were deserving of winning.
You think the Super Bowl is the best championship or trophy in sports compared to a World Series or what are the NBA?
Well, you've got the NBA is just the finals. Yeah, okay. The Larry O'Brien Trophy is who gets the finals in the NBA. You've got obviously the Super Bowl, the World Series, NHL, Stanley Cup. You have to put that way up there. NHL is not necessarily as widespread in awareness, but there is nothing better than playoff hockey. It is absurd and exciting. And the Stanley Cup is just very iconic in tradition. So I would say if I were to rank the trophies themselves, number one would be the Stanley Cup. Number two would probably be the Super Bowl. Number three would be the World Series. And number four would be the NBA. Obviously, you're winning one, you're winning a trophy. It's awesome. But as far as the iconicness of each one, I would put the Stanley Cup up there first.
We always played NHL, the EA Sports one on the Xbox. But I've never ever had a following for NHL, but I've always known the Stanley Cup and everything. Yep. But all things considered, I think that's true. I mean, it's really hard to get a single point in hockey.
Yep. And when you're playing 7 games or 4 games or 6 games or whatever else, the Super Bowl is an awesome event in the 2 weeks leading up to it, but it's a one-day, winner take all. Whereas like the other 3 all have series, and especially hockey, just the toughness and the grind. And
it's a hard sport, and the reason it's probably the best is because the trophy is deserving.
Yep. Yeah, and when they win, the celebration is always just insane. Not that it isn't for everybody else, too, but I would put the Stanley Cup up there as number 1.
So what do you think about the Redskins turning into like the football team, and then the Commanders? Like, they were literally called the Washington football team for a year.
I mean, we're kind of going through that a little bit now in the NHL with the Utah Hockey Club out here as well, switching from the Arizona Coyotes, and they were the Atlanta Thrashers, and then they were in Arizona, and then now they're here, and they're trying to find a name, and it takes time to figure out the right name, and agree or disagree with the Redskins changing away from that, or like the Cleveland Indians going to the Guardians. Whether you agree or disagree, I think they could have come up with a lot better name than the football club or the Commanders. But it was just a very weird transition at a weird time. And you lose a lot of history too, right? You can keep the colors, you can keep a similar type setting, but all those old fans that watched and loved and everything for so long, to just now it's gone. It was tough. And so I think they could have done it a lot better, come up with a better ending. Commanders is fine. But yeah, it was just a weird transition during that whole time.
Yeah, the name Commanders, I mean, I don't think they should have changed it at all, but since they did, I guess the Commanders is fine. But they shouldn't have changed it. Everyone that they thought they would offend from the original name, the Redskins, some people came out and said that they like the other name. It's just, it's what the people that changed it think.
And they've got new ownership now, and they're doing well. So I don't know. Maybe it looks like they're going to keep that. And people that come up as fans now, that's all they're going to know, and they'll love it and take it from here and run with it. Just for us that we're in the middle ground, it's kind of weird.
Who do you think in the current league, besides, well, if you do think it's Patrick Mahomes, but who do you think is the best player in the NFL league right now?
I mean, you'd have to put Mahomes up there. He's so good. And I mean, I don't like the guy. I don't like the Chiefs. Like we talked about already, I root for the underdogs, and I can recognize greatness while still hating on it, because that's who I am as a person. But if you think about other positions, there's a lot of Hall of Fame, really good quality players at defensive end. You think of a Myles Garrett, who's Defensive Player of the Year. You think of a TJ Watt, Defensive Player of the Year. Think of receivers like Justin Jefferson with the Vikings, or Jamar Chase with the Bengals. You've got corners and safeties that are really good. So players are just getting better and better and better over time. You put a wide receiver of today up against a cornerback from the 80s, they wouldn't have a chance. Just destroy them. But you put a defensive lineman from the 90s, like a Lawrence Taylor from the Giants, or a Ray Lewis, and you put them up against the current offensive tackles or the current defensive players, and they would smoke them. So the skill level and the technique just gets better and better over time. And it's a really good league right now. There's really good quality, really good players. Players specialize from a young age, right? You can be a 6th grader knowing I'm going to be a defensive end specializing in pass rush situations, versus back in the day it was I play offense, I play quarter, I play safety, I play wideout, I play tight end. You played 9 different positions just to play a football. And so I think the league today it's really fun to watch. It's, there's struggles with the technology and social media and all that kind of stuff, but there's a lot of really, really good players that are going to be in the Hall of Fame someday. But I would say today, probably Patrick Mahomes would be the best. Justin Jefferson I would put up there close as a skill position player, and Saquon Barkley would be up there too. Nobody on the Cowboys, sorry.
No, I don't like the Cowboys. I always thought I did, because, you're a little kid. You maybe watch a game here or there. You don't really have your own opinions when you grow up in Texas. I mean, some people like the Texans. I don't like
Right.
the Texans even more, but yeah, the Cowboys, they're fake in a lot of ways, and Dak Prescott, I have no idea why they're keeping him. I mean, sure, he's a good quarterback, but
he's not one of those players I would say is going to be in the Hall of Fame one day.
And then they took Ezekiel Elliott back.
Yeah,
they got rid of him and then took him back.
Yeah, he's kind of.
But which player would you want to see come back in their prime? Like,
are we talking like any player ever? Oh man, that's a tough one. If you could put selfishly, if I could put like prime Adrian Peterson on the Vikings right now, I think we'd win the Super Bowl because our running game struggles. So that's a selfish one. If I could think of any player from history, specifically like maybe someone I didn't see play, would probably be a Barry Sanders or Walter Payton. Walter Payton's sweetness, one of the best running backs of all time. Barry Sanders, same thing, maybe the best running back of all time. Very short career because he played in Detroit for the Lions, and they were absolutely terrible his entire career. I think he retired at 28 or 29 and just said, I'm done. And so if I could see him play in his prime and on the good Lions teams like they are now, that would be incredible. Think of defensive players, like I mentioned earlier, Lawrence Taylor would be up there. Just an absolute wrecking ball on defense. And when he lined up against you, you knew one of two things was going to happen. You were going to get out of his way or you were going to get moved out of his way. And he was going to win. And players like that, where almost unstoppable, are fun to watch no matter what the sport is. So somebody like a Lawrence Taylor, Barry Sanders, think of, prime Randy Moss was awesome. Torching people on offense, just going deep for touchdowns. Jerry Rice would be up there. Watching Jerry Rice, still the record holder in pretty much every receiving category today. And I mean, there was one season he played 12 games and caught 22 touchdowns in 12 games. See that today in today's NFL, he'd have 40 touchdowns in a year. So there's a lot, but I would say selfishly put Adrian Peterson in his prime on the Vikings now, and we'd be winning Super Bowls. But historical, somebody like a Lawrence Taylor, a Barry Sanders, just a very dominant person at their position, that would be really fun to see.
So, back in the day, I don't know when it was, but they made a film about it when the Philadelphia Eagles did open, like, they asked for players and fans to be own players of the Eagles, and they actually got one as a punt receiver. But if you could play any position in football, just you right now, which one would it be?
It's funny. I've had discussions about this previously, and there's either the position that I would enjoy playing or the position that would make me the most money in the longest career. And so if it was the second that I could make the most money and have the longest career, it would be a punter. Because you get to go out there and you hold the snaps on the kickoff or the extra points and the field goals. You punt the ball, you can't get touched or it's a penalty. And you play like 5 plays a game and you get paid a couple $1 million a year and you sit on the bench and hang out for most of the game. So punter, I think, would be fun, especially if you want to go into like coaching or you like the ins and outs of the game. Because you're on the team. Yes, you have to play, but you also get to kind of sit back and watch the inner workings a lot. So I think that'd be cool. But if it was, I want to get out on the field and knock some people around and have some fun, I would probably be a tight end, just with how my body is and the size that I am and the abilities that I have. I would want to be like a tight end, wide receiver. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Get up and blocking people, but making cool catches and celebrating and having a good time with that. So I think that'd be a lot of fun.
So to close, what's the most heartbreaking loss that your Vikings have ever had? Like, I know it happens quite a lot.
Where should I begin? That is a question. So many of them. I mentioned the 2 worst ones already, but I'll go back to them. The 98 one, I was only 4 or 5 at the time, and so I don't really remember it. but the 15-1 year, the Gary Anderson field goal miss, that was a tough one. There's still books and stories written and told about that game and that season. And so that was very heartbreaking for Vikings fans of the previous generation. For my generation, it's 2009. NFC title game, 2009 at the Superdome against the New Orleans Saints, 31-28 in overtime. Vikings lost. And for so many reasons, it was stolen because of Bountygate, the scandal there. At that time in NFL rules, the overtime rules were first score wins, doesn't matter what it is. Now the overtime rules have been changed to if the first team kicks a field goal, the second team gets a chance to respond. And that was changed because of the 2009 NFC title game. The Saints got the ball first in overtime, had a really lame holding penalty, pass interference against the Vikings that shouldn't have been called, put them into field goal range, and they kicked a long field goal, and Vikings never even got the ball, and we lost. And so the NFL went and changed the rule for playoffs the next year. We had like 5 turnovers between fumbles and interceptions and still had a chance to win. All of the different reasons that go into it. I still remember sitting in my living room as how old would I have been at that time? 14, 15, and on the farm, ready to go out and go do chores after church, milking the cows and cleaning up and doing all the stuff. Had the buckets ready to go and the chore clothes, sitting there watching the end of the game, listening to Paul Allen on the radio. And when he hit the kick, I just walked out the door, and I was crying. I was not happy. It was
man.
So yeah, I would put that one as the worst in my lifetime. There's been other ones that have been bad, but that's definitely the worst one, was that 2009 title game.
You were actually weeping for your team.
Oh yeah, 100% I was. It wouldn't affect me near as much now if something like that happened. I'd be like, oh, come on, man, how does this always happen to us? But yeah, back then I was locked in on the Vikings, and it was a tough day. It was tough. But life goes on, right? Sports are fun. They're fun to talk about and debate, and that's why we love them, because we all have different opinions. But in the long run, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really affect us too much. And so you move on, and you keep hoping that someday my win will come and we'll win a Super Bowl, or the Twins will win a World Series, or the Timberwolves will win a Finals, or the Wild will win a Stanley Cup. And someday I'll be able to cheer for a champion.
Yeah, maybe one day the Vikings will hold a Lombardi trophy.
That would be amazing, especially because it's named after a Packer. That would be awesome.
Never going to happen. And the Vikings love purple because it matches their bruises.
That's true. Best joke about the Vikings I've ever heard. Why don't the coaches let the Vikings eat cereal? Because every time they get close to a Super Bowl, they choke.
Okay, well, it was good having you, Jordan. One thing I want to discuss to you guys, the podcast to me sometimes at the end of the episode is like a lecture. And I want to say, somebody, you left a 1-star rating on Apple. I'm not bitter. I can't say that. Actually, I might be. I don't know. But at least if you ever leave a 1-star comment, tell me why in a comment. But make sure to email in at thejackatwoodpodcast@gmail.com any topic ideas you have. There's a lot of good Patreon content coming out. You should be expecting a behind-the-scenes featurette if you're a VIP member, so make sure to get in the loop there. And it was good having you today, Jordan. You have any ending remarks?
No, thanks for having me on. It was a fun discussion. Yeah, good questions and good debate, and we'll have to do this again on another topic sometime. This is a good time. Enjoyed listening to the other episodes, and we'll keep putting them out. Keep doing your thing.
Okay, we'll see you next time. See you on the flip side.